Mic test. Mic test. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your precious Saturdays to be with us today. Thank you for joining us at the Discover FAIR's engagement program and for considering majors offered at the College of Humanities and Science. We are extremely confident that after today, you'll have taken a first step into one of the most rewarding journeys of your life. We are aware of the importance of this decision, and so we've provided this platform to help you get all the information you need to make that leap. At this event, we have gathered professors, students, and staff for you to engage with later on, speak to, and find out more about the CHS programs, as well as what life is like in NUS. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming our esteemed Dean, Professor Lionel Wee, who will give his welcome. Professor, please.
Okay, well, good morning, and thank you very much for accepting our invitation to experience learning at FASS. We hope you'll find your morning here fruitful and engaging. Those of you who are not familiar with the College of Humanities and Sciences, let me just say that our aim here is to prepare you for a constantly changing world, and by the time you graduate, the world will be even more complex. And it's our goal to help you to be adaptable, resilient, and empathetic, because these are the qualities that will help you to flourish. The CHS core curriculum provides you with strong foundations in reading, writing, critical thinking, and numeracy. It will expand your learning capabilities and enhance your ability to think, to integrate knowledge and insights across many different disciplines. This is an ability that's integral to solving complex problems. What I'd like to do now is to just use this opportunity to try to dispel some myths. For example, some of you may be concerned that you will not be able to get the major of your choice. This is not true. The CHS FASS program offers great flexibility and choice, and with very few exceptions, you are in fact guaranteed the major of your choice. For those of you who do not want to commit to a major yet, you can most certainly spend your first year exploring before making a decision. And if you have chosen a major and you later decide to pursue another discipline that suits you better, you can change your major within the first 4 semesters without any fuss. We offer many combinations and possibilities from a wide range of 20 majors. You can pursue them as a primary major, second major, or double major. We also offer over 30 disciplinary and multidisciplinary minors that you can broaden your educational journey with us in. And you can combine your passion for the humanities with the sciences or with any other field seamlessly. So in other words, if you're already committed to a specific major, we will accommodate that. If you have not made up your mind, there is no rush. And if you later change your mind, that is not a problem. With that, I hope you enjoy our masterclasses delivered by some of our very best educators. Our colleagues and students are also here ready to answer any questions that you may have. And I look forward to welcoming you to FASS and to the NUS community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean. Now, just to give you a little taste of what CHS has to offer, please join me in welcoming Dr. Maiya Murphy from the Department of English, Linguistics, and Theatre Studies to give her masterclass on theatre as an aesthetic art and tool. Dr. Murphy, please.
Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to see you here, future university students, parents, friends here and afar, and it's a great opportunity to share a bit about theater studies and performance here with you today. So I come from the Department of English, Linguistics, and Theatre Studies, and we're diverse in our specialties, but we all look at some kind of culture or how cultural production works in the world, through the world, and for the world. And in theater studies in particular, we're interested in exploring how this domain of the imagination intersects with and shapes and forms and is informed by the domain of everyday life. I'd like to thank my colleague, Dr. Robin Loon. I'll be sharing some material today that comes from a module he created and that we now teach together. So today, here's our agenda. I'd like to talk about three things: some ways in which theater and performance as a discipline has expanded. I'd like to talk about some of the incredible intelligences involved in making, training for, and watching theater and performance. And then I'll talk about some change makers in the fields of theater and performance who want to use it to make direct impact on the world. So you may think that theater is a very specific discipline and deals with things that happen on stages. And indeed, this is the original idea from the West when this discipline began. But really, since the late 20th century, this has been way too narrow of a definition, and people have sought to expand theater. And now we talk about what's called performance and performance studies as a larger umbrella under which to catch all kinds of performances on stage in the world, across different kinds of times and places. So I'd like to give you an example of some of the different kinds of performances that we're interested here at NUS. And so let's take a look at one example for now. This is a Broadway production of Mice and Men, an adaptation of a Steinbeck novel. Let's take a look.
I'm looking for Curly.
He's in here a minute ago, but he went along.
You're the new fellas just come, ain't you?
Yeah.
Sometimes Curly's in here.
Well, he ain't now.
Well, if he ain't, I guess I better look someplace else.
If I see Curly, I'll pass the word you was looking for him.
Well, nobody can't blame a person for looking.
That depends what she's looking for.
I'm just looking for somebody to talk to. Don't you never just want to talk to somebody? Hi, Slim.
Hello.
I'm trying to find Curly.
You ain't trying very hard. I seen him go into your house.
I gotta be going.
So you may have never seen this production. I've never seen it live, but you probably know how to watch it. It's as if we are peeking into the curtains of someone's home, right? They don't acknowledge us, we don't acknowledge them, and through virtue of this really interesting relationship, we can watch times and places all over the world. Here, this is the Depression in the US. Now, sometimes other kinds of performances require different ways of engaging. So here's another wonderful performance that's quite different.
I'm looking for Kurt.
So again, you may have never seen a performance like this. This is a clip of a kabuki dance performance by a famous male performer who specializes in female characters, Bando Tamasaburo. And you can probably sense that it's meant to be experienced in a little bit of a different way. We see a landscape, But it's not like the landscape of the room in the first clip, right? There's something poetic about it. There's some cherry blossoms falling or snow or something like that. And we have the beautiful lines of the landscape. It's a little bit different. We also notice that the audience claps at certain occasions, right? When the performer changes costume with the help of the stagehands, the audience recognizes it with gratitude. And when the performer bends backward in this amazing feat of flexibility, the audience also shows their appreciation that that was a job well done. So here, in this performance, it's a bit different. There's a different relationship, but in theater and performance studies, the discipline itself really wanted to expand the umbrella under which all kinds of different performances could exist, and so performance became the name for that umbrella under which theater and other kinds of performance that may include music or dance are held under and included under. So by the 1980s, performance was a really important term and a way to think across time and place and style. And some folks in other disciplines became really interested in theater and performance, and they said, you know what, maybe we can use the tools of theater and performance to look at the world, right? Shakespeare wrote, "All the world's a stage." Some people, in more current times, said, you know what, let's look at human behavior through the tools of performance. I mean, we wear costumes, right? I didn't come here in my pajamas to talk to you, right? You didn't come here in your pajamas to be here, right? We have certain roles. We're sisters, we're brothers, we're children, we're parents, we're friends, and we fulfill these certain roles in society. So a famous sociologist named Erving Goffman started to really develop this idea, and he wrote a book called The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life, and you can see on the cover here these women in the West dressed up in their finery next to a woman in everyday clothes, and we can see that they're fulfilling certain different kinds of roles and ways of being in society through this everyday costuming. And so this is called performance studies, and it's a way to look at behavior in the world with the tools of theater and performance, and to understand that we make our lives, our communities, through reenacting these kind of behaviors, which participate in things like roles and settings and issues like that. And so theater studies and performance can help us understand that when placed in a different context. So let's move on to intelligences, and I'd like to propose to you that theater is a way to have a cognitive workout. So when you watch theater, you are working out all of these complex ways of seeing imagination and reality and forging a shared experience through this really challenging and sophisticated work that you're doing. This is a concept by a literary scholar, Lisa Sunshine, who applied the cognitive workout to literature. It's also applicable to theater. So I'll use this term to explain to you a phenomenon that we've probably all experienced. What happens when we watch an actor play a role? So, way back in the day, we used to explain in theater that when you go to the theater, you suspend your disbelief. We took this from Samuel Taylor Coleridge, right? That we go in there and we say, you know what, when I go see Benedict Cumberbatch play Hamlet, I agree to suspend my disbelief that this is Benedict Cumberbatch, and I'm going to believe that it's Hamlet, this fictional character. So it was an act, spectatorship, was an act of really sort of refusing to do something, refusing to deal with the reality on stage. But since the 21st century, a lot of amazing tools have arisen that allow us to see the body and the brain and what's going on, and some scientists and artists and art scholars have developed new tools and theories for understanding based on these new developments in cognitive studies in the humanities. So I'd like to share one with you today that gives us a new explanation of what happens when we watch someone play a role. So, I saw Sherlock. I really liked it. I immediately became a fan of Benedict Cumberbatch. I saw Doctor Strange. I saw The Imitation Game. And I basically, anything he does, I will like. I have already decided before I go in there, right? So that's my experience with Benedict Cumberbatch. You might have a different one. You might not even know who he is, right? Every spectator has a different set of things they bring to the experience. Then on the other hand, I've seen lots of different productions of Hamlet. I've read about historical productions. There's a lot of background that I bring when I go see a production of Hamlet. So one is this famous production of a woman who played Hamlet, Sarah Bernhardt. There's a wonderful theater artist who made this kind of comic book of Hamlet and divided him into two and made his sort of shadow psychological self plus the self he presents to the world, right? Really interesting. So I think of that when I think of Hamlet. I think of the Kenneth Branagh Hamlet. I think of the David Tennant Hamlet. I think of the Papa Eseriu Hamlet, and also the Jeonju version of Hamlet. And one I haven't even seen, but I heard is great, with an actress, Maxine Peake, who plays Hamlet. So when I go in to see Hamlet, I'm bringing all of this stuff with me. So conceptual blending is a concept from linguistics that theater scholars such as Amy Cook have brought into theater and performance. So this is how they explain what happens when I go in to watch Benedict Cumberbatch play Hamlet. So here's the nice little chart for you. We have the generic space on top, and this is the way in which we can match two kinds of inputs, which they call a generic structure. So we have Benedict Cumberbatch as an actual human who lives in the world and has a kind of journey through life, and we have Hamlet, this fictional character, who also has a journey through life. That's really all they have in common, but it's enough for the theater, right? That's how we can match them in this generic space. Then we have the input space 1 on your left with Hamlet, and you saw what I bring to Hamlet. And then the input space 2 of Benedict Cumberbatch, you saw what I bring, right? Selective projection into the blended space, which is Benedict Cumberbatch playing Hamlet. Now, truth be told, I didn't really like this production, but I enjoyed it because I always like him, right? So we often say that we live in the blend when we're spectating, right? When we're watching something. We're not refraining, right, from believing in something. Actually, we're blending imagination, reality. We're quite good at it. We're ready to do it, and we enjoy it. And when we get to go see something that we like when I get to go see Benedict Cumberbatch, usually I will like it. So this is conceptual blending and a new way to think about the kind of intelligence involved in watching. So now we'll move on to change makers, and I'd like to share with you some ideas about how theater makes direct impacts in the world and some of the theories and practices of theater practitioners who expressly develop their work in order to shape the world. So on the one hand, we have lots of theater about social issues. In some ways, you might say it's kind of impossible to make any kind of play that has nothing to do with the everyday world, right? But sometimes they make specific effort to stage issues for people to think about. And the theater is a space where we can actually do that in a safe way. We can think about really challenging, funny, happy, joyful, serious concepts with little repercussions in the world. It's a safe space to explore these as a community. So some examples of these are a play called Off Center. This is a Singaporean play that talks about mental health and supporting people with mental health. So just by staging it, it initiates a kind of community conversation. This other example is a famous play called The Lower Depths in Russia in 1902 and 1903, where they put on this play to expose how the poor people lived, to have a discussion about inequality in Russia at the time. And it's very famous for being very, very realistic or naturalist, as we might call it in the theater. There's a kind of rumor that goes around that the actors went and they took blankets from some people who were living on the street, which seems kind of not very nice. But anyway, they used them in the production, right? And that the spectators were afraid to watch because they were afraid they were going to get lice. So everyone sat really far back in the auditorium, right? And so the goal here was to stage something that was really hard to talk about. Now, some folks like to go another step beyond that and say, actually, the way in which you stage things can help the audience think about social issues, analyze them, and hopefully do something about them. So there's a practitioner named Bertolt Brecht, and he's a playwright and director, and he had ideas about how to stage things. And he said, if you make what is natural strange, if you make the everyday strange, you can help people analyze what's going on. So this is a production of Man ist Mann, or Man is Man. It's a play about war. And if you look, you can see that there are 3 soldiers, and they have these oversized costumes, right? And this is a technique to make the everyday of soldiers and war look strange. And Brecht believed that the audience will then look and say, wait a minute, these costumes are oversized in comparison to the everyday person there on the right. And why is this power in war outsized, right? And why do we live in a society that conducts war, and what can I do about it? So he believed that if you stage things in certain ways, the audience will be more easily provoked to think about what to do about it. Some scholars and practitioners and artists like to go even further into what we call applied theater, where they use techniques to directly make interventions into the world. For instance, this is Singapore's own Drama Box conducting what's called forum theater, where they stage an issue in society and then they ask the audience to come up and actually participate in the action and provide different kinds of solutions to problems. So it's a community brainstorming action where they actually stage issues and also stage solutions. Another example is from the US. It happens all over the world. A lot of people do work in prisons where they do theater with prisoners to help them reflect and explore and expand upon their own experiences and their abilities as a part of rehabilitation processes. This is a picture from the UK, and this explores drama therapy. In drama therapy, practitioners use techniques from the theater to help individuals actually stage problems, unhealthy relationships or behaviors, so that they can also propose solutions. So the great thing about theater is that you make something concrete on the stage. And in drama therapy, when you are able to stage challenges or problems or sufferings, and you stage potential different kinds of behavior, healthy kinds of relationships and solutions, you can actually teach the person how to change their lives and to solve their problems. So these are examples of the change makers in theater and performance who use techniques to make direct impact on the world. So thank you today for joining me in this journey through theater and performance on stage and in the world. And we talked about the way in which our discipline is expanding beyond its borders to make a difference in the theater, in practice and beyond. And we've talked about some of the intelligences involved in watching the theater. And we've talked about some of the change makers here today. So after this talk, I'm going to be here, and I'd love to answer any questions for you that you might have about what we've chatted about here today. And in the Clove room over around to the back here, I'll show you a map in a moment. I'll show it to you right now, in fact. You can talk to the folks in my department about English, linguistics, and theater studies and performance. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy, for the eye-opening and thought-provoking masterclass. Now, if you'd like to find out more about what she's just talked about and also what the faculty has to offer, you're in luck, because right now I invite everyone here to join us right outside where we have 4 seminar rooms with representatives from every major and department in our faculty.